Shalom, shalom, daughters of Yah. It is me, Malcolm Marie, your favorite big sister, mentor, and life coach. As a mentor, one of the things that mentors do is we support women in their lives, their roles. We use the experiences that we go through to help other women going through similar or same experiences. It's basically about us sharing our wisdom. And if you think about the goodness of the Father, that he has called us as women, right, as elders, according to Titus 2, that we are supposed to share our experiences. The elder are supposed to help the younger, but not just these two generations working with one another, but a sisterhood working within a sisterhood to help each other in our experiences. So, I'm sorry, I have getting over a cold. Along those lines, I've been placed in an experience that I'm going to share with you as a woman, as women in the body, because one, it's not spoken enough. The way the Father has me focused about the body of Israel, the body of Messiah, is that we need resources within ourselves to help us in the different things that we go through in life, whatever that might be, which is why I became a life coach, because at the time I did not find or didn't have access to a life coach that would coach me from the point of view of being a Bible believer, a Torah believer, of being a believer in the Messiah, coming from a Hebrew point of view. And I didn't want, not that worldly advice is wrong, because it's not, there's wisdom in worldly advice, but I needed a balance between worldly advice and the word, because I choose the word to live by. And so here I am in another juncture of my life where I'm looking for resources, and there are resources out there, but the absence of the resource coming from the Hebraic community is deafening. So here I am, sharing my story of getting a hysterectomy. Stay tuned. I don't know what normal is when it comes to the functioning of my body. If I am just really honest with myself, I feel like I've just lived with how my body has functioned since I was 13 years old. It has become my normal, but I don't think it's normal. And I say that because the first time I got my cycle, I was 13 or just about to be 13, and it lasted for 7 days. And my cycle has always lasted for a minimum of 7 days. I'm going to school, everyone had 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. I never enjoyed that. So as I reflect upon my decision, like I'm thinking of the totality of this decision, and I'm looking at my journey as a woman with my cycle, I realized that from day one, that it has not been an easy journey. In my early 20s, at this point, I think I already had 2 of my children. I developed polyps, which they really were no reason for them to happen. That they were removed in the office, but they were an inconvenience, and so dealt with that. To be honest, my only relief from my cycle and everything about it was being pregnant, which Todaya I never had a problem with. If my husband and I, matter of fact, when my husband and I decided to have children, it was never a thing of missing, like going for months and months trying and not getting. It was literally, let's have baby number one. Baby number one came. I was fertile, but those were the only times where I had no issues with my cycle. Obviously, I had no cycle. So pregnancy was a relief. My third pregnancy, I had a little hiccup where the placenta was starting to separate from the uterus. And I believe Father took care of that with deep prayer. And after I went back to the ultrasound, after praying that the placenta and the uterus had healed, and I knew that was the father because there was no other intervention. So I was grateful for that. But then I had a place of, and just to be totally transparent and tell my story, because I know this is not unique to me, but at that time, my family, my husband and I, we were poor, like poor. We weren't homeless, but we were poor. And the thought of having, and I had Danielle and Dael were not even 2 years apart. And we were poor. And I just remember thinking, we cannot afford to have any more children. And I thought about having my tubes tied. And when I went to my husband, he was in agreement. I went to my spiritual leader, and he said that his counsel or his advice was that, the Father's divine will was that we multiply, but that he does permit us to make decisions for our bodies. And so I made the decision to have my tubes tied after Danielle, so about 24 years ago. And I did regret that. And for a long time I beat myself up because it was a lack of faith, which it was. But I did repent of it because I believe that the Father was able to, and I gave my womb back to him, and I did ask him that if it's his will and his divine will that I have more children, that he bring forth the ability for that to happen, because there's nothing he can't do. I believe that he was able to regrow my fallopian tubes and allow my body to be able to conceive again. Again, just being transparent and honest. Is a decision that I regretted. If I could do it over again, I would not do it. But I'm grateful that the Father he does give us free will. And at that point, I had multiplied. I had 3 children. And so that was that part of that journey. We enter into my 30s. And that's when I began to have my late 30s, early 40s. That's when I began to have suffer from fibroids. And not just the fibroids. I mean, at the time I didn't know there were fibroids, but my cycle was, I know all the issues were hormonal, because the times where I was ovulating, I was spotting, and then I'd be spotting for days, then my cycle will start, and then they were lasting longer than 7 days. Over the years, up until now, my cramps have become increasingly painful. Like, just side note, Yom Kippur, I was on my cycle, and I say, well, this was possibly the most miserable Yom Kippur, because I knew I normally take Motrin. I gotta take something heavy for my cramps, and I gotta eat, so I couldn't eat. I chose not to eat to honor the fast. And I'm saying that pain was just excruciating back pain and just cramping. But either way, as the time goes by, as time has gone by, my cramps has gotten increasingly more painful. In my 30s, my cycle began to get longer. Of course, it disrupts intimacy with my husband. And so then we find out that I have fibroids. And the first time I found out I had fibroids, the gynecologist at the time, she's just matter-of-factly gave me my options of an ablation or hysterectomy, or just to wait until I hit menopause. Now, mind you, I'm in my late 30s. Historically, the women in my family have their cycles way into their 50s. And so it's like, okay, so you want me to sit here for what, 15, 20 years, possibly more, living like this? That wasn't an option. I thought the ablation and hysterectomy were very aggressive options for the first time of even knowing that I had fibroids. And so I just walked away from the table and I just took it to the Father. I did research. I found a great book that helped me, that I really followed through in healing fibroids naturally. And I did as much things in the book. Like I'm telling you, I even went to the point of making my own suppositories. And I changed my diet. I realized that it was just estrogen dominance. And so a lot of the things that caused that, I just changed in my household. And when I went for a follow-up, I don't remember the timetable, when I went for my follow-up pelvic ultrasound, there were no fibroids, right? Hallelujah. And the Father had shown me the way to heal my fibroids. And the flip side of fibroids, of the causes of fibroids, what I learned is, what causes them can be hereditary. As women, Black women, we are more prone to develop fibroids, especially in our 30s. It can be hormonal, it can be hereditary, but it also can be an unfulfillment, right? Because these things are happening in the place of life, the place of creativity, the place of birth, the place of nurturing. And so if as a woman, when we are stifled, when we are stymied, when we are not allowed to create, we're not allowed to express, we're not allowed to be all that Yah has created us to be, I saw the connection of this growth, this pseudo life growth in my body that eventually returned. And it returned, and at this point I figured, okay, I've done the natural. I was delivered, I was healed. I didn't work on all aspects that can bring forth the fibroids, because I still believe that I stifled and did not nurture the calling in my personal life. And that probably aided in the regrowth of the fibroid. So in my 40s, cycle continues to be heavy, continues to be long, continues to be painful. Find this great doctor here at University of Maryland, Dr. Holsey. She's a sister. She is my contemporary, and I just felt like she was a blessing to my life. And at this point, I have multiple fibroids. I have submucosal, which is actually in the walls of the uterus. I have them stemming off of the actual uterus. I have them in the uterus, right? So my uterus is just being overtaken by the fibroids. I don't remember the count of how many they were. At this point, I know that I'm not having any more children, obviously. And even though I could have done a lot of what I did in my 40s, in my 30s, I just didn't want to be so aggressive at the gate. And I don't regret that. Because doing it the way I did do it, or the way the Father led me to do it, has given me peace. So my doctor advised that she do a removal of the fibroid that was in the uterus, and then do a uterine ablation, which what that does is that burns the lining of the uterus, and that should basically stop my period, right? I will still ovulate. It doesn't interfere with the ovaries, but it doesn't allow the lining of my uterus to become thickened with blood and then shed like a normal period, because that's what causes the period. And I was excited about that. Did research, and everybody read people's comments about it, and it just seemed like it was, people just never got their period again, never dealt with the cramping again. And I just felt like, okay, I'm finally going to get relief. So we had the surgery, and 3 weeks after the surgery, maybe a month after the surgery, just gush of blood. And at this point, I'm out. I'm out in life. I'm not prepared. And it's not like a spotting, it's just like a full gush. And it's like, these are some of the like, I could just do a clip of the embarrassments that my cycle has caused me. But this is one of those, because I was with my husband, I was with my daughter, I was with my son-in-law, I was with my grandson, and we were out in public. So that was horrible. I called after surgery, like, I just had this surgery, and now I'm thinking I'm having some kind of complication from the surgery. And it was my period. Long story short, it was just my period. My period just came back, and it was just like a regular period. And I was disappointed, but I said, just wait a minute, because it is the first period after the surgery. Maybe things hasn't healed up enough to stop the bleeding from happening. But again, my period just never stopped. It continued to come, and I'm missing something. I started to take Listata. Right, I started to take Listata before I had the fibroid removal and the ablation. I started to take Listata, and Listata is a medication that stops bleeding. So I would take that for only 5 days, and that would work. But in between these things, I'm still doing natural things, like I'm taking shepherd purse drops, teas. I'm taking Vitex. So I'm complementing pharmaceuticals with natural herbs. So, long story short, the ablation failed. And when my doctor told me, like, wow, this failed, I was just like, wow, this failed. Like, how does this fail? It did. I forgot to share that between my 30s and my 40s, I had gotten so anemic that I had to undergo 2 series of hemoglobin infusion for my very, very low anemia levels. I was so anemic that I was literally tired all the time. And it is just amazing how we just get used to abnormal like it's our normal. Like, I would fall asleep at the red light, and I'd literally put the car in park at a red light to fall asleep and just have the kids nudge me when the light turned green, but I was just always tired. The doctors would be amazed, like, aren't you tired? I'm like, I'm always tired. And it was because of the amount of blood I was losing continually. And I forgot to share that earlier, but that definitely was another thing that I had to consider, was my chronic anemia. So now, in my 50s, yes, I turned 50 this year, and blood work is amazing. The scripture says that the life is in the blood, but the life really is in the blood. It's amazing what a blood workup can tell you. And one of the things my blood workup told me was that I'm not even perimenopausal. So, this is not my body transitioning into menopause. I'm not even perimenopausal yet. So what am I looking at? At least possibly 10 years of this. And like I said, it's just gotten worse. So this year, I can't even, okay, I'll just say like this. This was my, this is how I had to package myself during my cycle. Super Plus tampon, the 10-hour thick purple pads, a period panty. And if I was going outside and I didn't feel 100% secure, I was putting a Depends over that. And when I tell you that I would go through the tampon, the pad, and the period panty, I'm telling you that this is what would happen. I remember someone telling me that their cycle is like, teaspoons. And I'm just thinking to myself, teaspoons? Like TMI alert, right? I can hear issue running, like dripping in the commode. I just hear it running like a faucet, right? TMI. But that's how I would flow. And I just, like, at some point, like, how bad does it need to be before you realize, okay, you're just not winning, right? But I was still going to try something else. Try birth control pills, right? And figured, well, the birth control pills is going to help somehow. Whatever. So I get the birth control pills. I start that. And they never helped. Long story short, they just didn't help me. I will tell you that for the summer of 2023, and I'm talking about, let's just say June 1st up until September, I've had some level of a cycle for the majority of that time, plus 100 days, something. If it's not spotting, it's a flow. If it's the flow, it's the spotting. Either way, it's disruptive. It's disruptive, and it has affected my quality of life. I remember I went to an acupuncture appointment, and because I've tried that as well. And I remember just laying there one time and just bursting out crying. And I didn't even know or realize that I had that much sadness about my cycle just in my body, in my spirit. It has just overtaken my thoughts, right? Like, when I shared with my sisters that I'm getting ready to do this, I said that, I'm excited to know what normal is, because I don't know what normal is when it comes to my body. And I'm just so tired of living in this space of having this period cloud over me for everything. Everywhere I go, if we're going on vacation, I gotta think about that. If I'm going out, I gotta think about that. If I sit down, I think about that. I mean, I've had accidents on people's furniture at their homes, and it's just been a heavy burden. It's just been a really heavy burden. So in June, when I got the birth control pills, at that exam, she, even I noticed that my tummy was high, right? I don't have a washboard stomach, but I just knew that was not my stomach. Like, that wasn't all me. And she said, your uterus feels high, and she thought she felt fibroids again. Now, mind you, I had fibroid removal in 2020. I had an ablation that should not even make it possible for them to regrow in my uterus. But if it didn't work for my period to stop, obviously it did not work for fibroids not to regrow. And so she sent me in for a pelvic ultrasound, and I said, this is it. I said to myself, if this is fibroids again, and if that's the cause of what I'm going through, I'm done. I said, I'm done. And of course, pray, I talk to my sister and blah, 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 and drop a little hint here and there in my family to kind of, test the waters, the feedback, especially my husband. And, prayed about it. And a scripture that was given to me, I don't remember if it was my sister who said it or it came to my spirit, but the scripture, I believe my sister said it. She said, If your right eye offends thee, pluck it out. And I thought about, wow, my uterus does offend me at this point in my life. It has caused me a very decreased level of quality of life. And I don't want to live like this for another 10 years, possibly. I don't. I'm tired of carrying this burden of my period, of the pain, of the flow, of the breaking of intimacy with my husband, who is patient. And grateful for his patience, but at the end of the day, you know, we're a married couple. And this is something the Father has given us to be able to enjoy ourselves with each other, and we haven't been able to do that. What stood out to me, like what really just nailed it for me when I went back for her consultation about the ultrasound, and she said, your fibroids are aggressive. You know, like I said, I already decided in my mind, but when she said those words, I just felt like they were determined to just take over my uterus. Prayed, and I asked the Father to let me know that this was okay with him. You know, ask permission, basically, in his guidance. And I know I wanted to hear it come out of my husband's mouth, but I didn't want it to be an obvious thing, right? Like we spoke about it, but I wanted to come from a place of a natural conversation or a natural response coming from him, rather than me asking and hearing an answer and it possibly being him giving an answer that I want, you know, something like that. So I just wanted it to be an organic, something organic came from him, that I would know that the Father was okay with this. And it happened. I was talking to my daughter about it, and he interjected in the conversation just so matter-of-factly that it took me back, because I was just like, wow, you know, he said it with such confirmation, I guess the word. It was just that I was like, wow, okay, so yeah, we're moving forward. So I'm moving forward. I'm beginning my research. I've been doing my research. So what I'm going to do moving forward is just share the steps, share my preparation, and share the experience when it happens. And I'm making this video for women in the body of Messiah who are struggling with their uterine health. In our culture, right? Those of us who are coming from a Hebrew point of view, and we're trying to walk in the laws, statutes, and judgments of Torah, we have this impression that we are never to depart with our uterus, or we're just supposed to just continue to have children until the Father says stop. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but all knowledge, all wisdom comes from the Father. And the reality is, if you have an organ in your body that no longer serves you, is no longer functional, causes you hurt, harm, and danger, it is not contrary to the Father to get it removed, right? If any one of us had a cancerous toe, or a gangrene finger, or any other part of our body that was no longer functional and was hurting us, we would remove it without a second thought, maybe. But when it comes to our uterus and our fallopian tubes and our ovaries, I feel like we believe that those are taped off with red warning tape that do not touch, do not remove. And I'm not advocating for the swift, quick, nonchalant removal of these organs, because they are true. I can't find another word other than they are truly divine. My uterus housed my children. I never suffered a miscarriage. It has just gotten to a point where it is no longer servicing me. It is no longer functional. I have brought forth fruit. I can't have any more children. The Father has not placed seed in my womb for the past 24 years. And I have peace. And I just want you to know that you have an option if you have a uterus that isn't serving you anymore, that you don't have to suffer because it's your uterus, right? Your uterus is not holy and set apart. It is supposed to serve you. And if it's no longer serving you, right? If your right eye offend thee, cast it out. And I'm doing it with peace. And so if you don't agree, don't waste your time with the negative comments, because I'm not going to respond to it. The peace that I have, no comment is going to rob me of that. Nothing you say is going to change the decision that I and my husband and my family have decided to make for my body. So save yourself the energy. If you think I'm in error, just pray, right? If you need to talk about this, just know that more types of videos like this is going to be coming, because we need to have these kind of conversations. And as believing women, we just have to be more transparent. As Titus 2 women, we have to be more transparent. We have to share these difficult, unspoken, hush-hush conversations about our body, our female bodies, our female health, our self-care, just all of that. And so I pray that this video is just used as a tool for you, to help you, to encourage you to maybe slow down your progression to surgery. Know there's other things that can be done in between, before the surgery. And I think the best thing I could have done is to do everything I know I could have done. Like yesterday, I met with the surgeon, and I'm going to share that conversation in another video, but he gave me another option of what could have happened, and it was an embolization, which means they cut off the blood supply to the uterus. And I'm just like, no, because if the uterus is not getting a blood supply, that means the uterus is going to die, and I'm not going to walk around with a dead organ in my body. I'd rather have it removed. So that was one option that I definitely did not want to be a part of. But I'll share more about that in upcoming videos. Keep me in prayer. And I feel good. I feel good. I have peace. And I pray that this helps you. So until next time, it is me, Malcolm Marie, your favorite big sister mentor life coach. Shalom, Queens.